All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Haywood, and welcome you all to Black Women in Media's fifth conference and awards. I would love to introduce the lovely ladies that are sitting before you this evening: Miss Selena Hill, Miss Kelsey Nicole Nelson, Miss Shara Parker, and Miss Erica Icy. And today we're going to be discussing news and journalism. So I'm going to have the ladies introduce themselves. I'm super excited about this panel. I mean, just amazing women in media in general. So let's just go ahead and have them go ahead and get started. All right, so Selena.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Courtney, and thank you so much, Judith. My name is Selena Hill. I'm the digital editor at Black Enterprise, where I cover race, politics, culture, entrepreneurship, and leadership. I also host The New Norm with Selena Hill, which is a weekly video content series where I talk about resilience and adaptability. In midst of COVID-19, had a number of great guests, everyone from Senator Kamala Harris to Karrueche Tran to Kevin Hart, a nice little mixture there. So you guys could definitely check that out streaming on Black Enterprise's different platforms. Outside of that, I also host a content series with Social Media Week Plus. It's called Branding in the Age of Black Lives Matter. That comes out every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check it out there. And then lastly, I'm the founder of Be Her Talk, which is a political talk show that adds a taste of Beyonce and Assata Shakur to unflavored news. We do that every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You can check it out.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And next we have Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Yes, well, first off, I also want to say thank you so much for having me. My pleasure to be here for the first time, and hopefully not the last time, but I mean, super excited to be on this panel. I'm Kelsey Nicole Nelson. I'm based in our nation's capital of Washington, D.C. I am a freelancer, so I have a couple jobs, much like Selena. So one of the things I do is I'm one of the newest hosts for the Washington football team. I host two of their digital shows. One is called The Fit, which is a fashion show where we get to highlight the players' fashions and styles and around the National Football League. And I also host The Life, which is kind of a lighter entertainment side show where we get to showcase the players' lives off the football field. And then I also host Washington Unfiltered, which comes on NBC Sports Washington, where we get to recap all of our 7 Washington Unfiltered shows for the Washington football team. So basically I'm keeping busy during football season. And then I also work with Fox Sports Radio. I have my own podcast, Listen In with K&N, presented by Fox Sports Radio. We live stream it on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and there's also an audio version. The live stream show is every Thursday at 6 p.m. and every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and the audio version comes out every Wednesday at noon. So keeping busy with that as well. And then I'm also an instructor for radio and podcasting at the Rao College, where my students run Sirius XM channel 145. So super busy with all of the different jobs, very into sports and entertainment. And then I also am the co-chair of the mentorship committee for the NABJ Sports Task Force. So very busy in DC, but lots of great things going on. So thanks again so much for having me.
Wow, so much amazing stuff you have going on. Wow, a lot.
Yeah.
Next up is the beautiful Shara Parker.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me. Look, I don't have a long list of things that I got to go through. I'm having trouble keeping just this one job. So look, I'm good with the one that I got. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I am a morning anchor as well as a reporter. I'm a community and culture reporter. So that's mostly what I focus on. I've branded myself as a community-focused storyteller, the community that I've been involved in here in Dallas. I've only been here a year, and I'm very much well known in many of the communities around here because that's exactly what I wanted to do when I moved here. And so anyways, that's what I do day in, day out, all day long. You'll see me posting on social media all the time, and I'm always interacting with folks. So that's what I do. I don't have a million jobs, but I try to do the one job that I have very, very well. So if there's anything I can do to help you with anchoring and reporting and community-focused storytelling, that's what I do.
Amazing. And next, it's Erica Icy.
Yes, hi everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much, Courtney and Judith, for having me. So yeah, I'm Erica AEC. I am a freelance international multimedia journalist. Most of my work covers the African diaspora around the world. So a lot of my work I've done work in Ghana and Jamaica and England and different parts of the world, kind of gathering the Black global experience for different freelance outlets. So most of my work is with NBC News, but I've also done a lot with EXO Nicole, Essence Magazine, and a few others. So yeah, just, living the freelance life. But I also teach digital media production as well. So very busy doing that. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for participating. So we're going to go ahead and just get this conversation started.
Hey, Courtney.
Yes.
I am so sorry to interrupt. Erica, I meant to say something at the very beginning. I think your mic is rubbing, and if it continues on, I think that might, mess with the audio just a little bit. It was rubbing even during your introduction.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if y'all can edit it at all, but I know that'll.
Yeah, I think, well, you know what?
I couldn't hear it.
I'm pretty sure Judith may be able to edit. So I don't know if we want to do it over again, just in case. Just for
I wouldn't be opposed. The only reason is because I hear that, and I know other people hear it, and I heard it before we started, but I forgot to say something.
I heard it too.
Yeah, can you talk
when you were talking, Erica?
Okay, I didn't hear it at all.
Oh, Courtney, is this live? Is this live, Courtney?
Live. No, it's not live. It's being recorded.
Okay, I saw the live ticker. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's being recorded.
So what did you want to make it seamless where we all go again and just go through it, or what did you think?
Yeah, I would think so, because I'm not really sure what they do on the back end. So just on the safe side, I would probably say let's just do it one more time, and then go from there. Yeah, so, and then we could kind of just get everything, all the glitches and whatever out of the way. So that's perfect. Thank you so much for pointing that out.
Sorry, everyone. Bad luck.
No, it's all good.
I didn't hear it at all. No,
no, it's definitely all good.
Okay.
Listen, it's all good.
Right. We all working with it.
Yes. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Haywood, and I'm super excited and elated to just welcome you guys to Black Women in Media's 5th Conference and Awards. I have before me some amazing women in media. I would love to introduce them to you. Miss Selena Hill, Miss Kelsey Nicole Nelson, Miss Shara Parker, and Miss Erica Ayesi. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening. So first, I would love for them to introduce themselves to you all. So we're going to start off with Miss Selena Hill.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Courtney, and thank you so much, Judith. I've actually been attending Black Women in Media for years, and it is a privilege and an honor to sit on a panel, so thank you. My name is Selena Hill. I'm the digital editor at Black Enterprise, where I cover race, politics, and culture, as well as entrepreneurship and leadership. I also host a weekly series that's called The New Norm with Selena Hill that streams across all of Black Enterprise's social media platforms. And we had a number of great guests on the show, everyone from Senator Kamala Harris to Kevin Hart to Karrueche Tran. So it's definitely a nice mix of people there. And we're talking about how everyone is adjusting to the new norm, but still the resilience and the adaptability that they show to really navigate during this time of uncertainty. And outside of that, where I am full-time, I also host a series for Social Media Week Plus. It is called Branding in the Age of Black Lives Matter. You can catch that on Social Media Week Plus's subscription site every Tuesday at 3 p.m. And then outside of that, on the weekends, I'm hosting my own political podcast. It is called Be Heard Talk, and we talk race, politics, and culture from an unapologetic, unfiltered Black millennial perspective. And you can check it out there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Selena. Thank you. And next we have Miss Kelsey Nicole Nelson.
Yeah, so I also want to extend my gratitude. Thank you so much for having me. It's a true pleasure to be here for the first time, but definitely not the last time, and to just be amongst these incredible panelists. I am Kelsey Nicole Nelson. I'm based out of DC, or as we like to call it here in the area, the DMV area. I have 3 jobs as a freelancer. One of those jobs is working for the Washington football team. Still getting used to saying that, where I host 3 shows for them, 2 digital and 1 for television. One of those shows is called The Fit, where we highlight the fashions on the football team, as well as around the National Football League. Another one's called The life, where, as it sounds, we highlight lifestyles off the football field of players on the Washington football team and across the National Football League. And I also host Washington Unfiltered, which wraps up all of our great 7 digital shows on the weekends every Saturday morning at 9:30 Eastern Time on NBC Sports Washington. I'm also working with students. I'm an instructor at Doral College, where I teach intro to radio and podcasting, where our students run Sirius XM channel 145. So that also keeps me busy as well. And then I'm also with Fox Sports Radio, which most people know me from, where I host my own show. Listen In with Kanan is a radio show and podcast show. It's been amazing. We've had, much like Selena, a lot of great guests. We've had LeVar Ball on, Meta World Peace, lots of guests from the sports and entertainment world. And we live stream it. And we also, of course, have an audio version. The audio version is on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. It drops every Wednesday at noon. And then the live stream version every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time and every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So I hope everyone can definitely check it out. And then soon we'll be launching a new show called Beyond Sports with Kanan on Sirius XM. So everyone should stay tuned for that.
Yes, Miss Kelsey has a lot of jobs. Listen, but next up is Miss Shara Parker.
Yes, hello everybody. First of all, before I even jump in here, Selena and Kelsey, look, my hat's off. I don't got a hat on right now, but my hat's off to you ladies, because y'all are killing it with all these jobs and all these accolades. Honey, make it happen. Again, my name is Shara Parker. Courtney, you guys, thank you so much for having me. Like Kelsey mentioned, this is my first time actually being involved with Black women in media, and I'm so elated to just be here to talk to you guys and to go through some of the conversations that we're going to have here today. I am in Dallas, based out of Dallas, ABC Dallas. I work for a Tegna media station. I've been here for about a year. I'm the community and culture reporter. I'm also a morning anchor and reporter. So that's what I do. I don't have 1,000,001 jobs. Look, I told y'all, I'm just struggling to keep this one intact. So that's what I do on a daily basis.
Thank you. And last but not least, Miss Erica Asi.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Erica Aisi. I'm an international freelance journalist. I cover human feature stories really pertaining to the African diaspora around the world. So a lot of my work has been done in Ghana and different parts of Africa, as well as the UK and different parts of the Caribbean, and of course here in the United States. And I also teach digital media production. And I also have a small business, a Kosia's Closet, where I sell jewelry, home decor, and clothing made by women across the African continent. So that's me.
Wow. We're finding a lot of hidden gems, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you all for just joining us. So we're just going to go ahead and dive right in and talk about news and journalism. So our first question is, in the past 5 years, how has the field of news and journalism changed? And what do you predict will develop in the next 5 to 10 years as the field of news and journalism evolves? So anyone can take a bite at that.
I guess I can kick things off. I think news and journalism is always changing. It's always evolving. I mean, my first job that I said, it's a digital reporter job, right? And so that's something that's kind of new, and that's growing currently in this space. You see a lot of digital reporter jobs on the news side, and then in sports, you're seeing a lot of teams do digital content reporter jobs. So you have people understanding that digital is kind of the space that everyone's moving to. What are people doing? They're cutting their cable cords. We're tired of those expensive cable bills, right? So we're trying to find ways for people to still watch and connect with news, and they're using these things right here. They're using their phones. So how do we still reach people on their cell phones to get them different news? So I think that just shows how technology is evolving and how news is kind of having to keep track and keep pace. We've seen the evolution of podcasting. We heard the podcast on this very show. And it's something that everyone is kind of getting into, both younger career journalists and older career journalists, which has been great to see. Of course, newspapers are still around kicking. We see their subscription-based services, right? They're trying to still make money. And then, of course, even radio, though. Radio has continued to kind of have that great kind of continuation. I know some thought that radio would die off, but we kind of actually see the numbers growing. And so it shows that people are kind of getting back to just wanting to listen, right? So people like podcasting, you can listen to it anytime. You can stop it, you can start it. And then there's so many podcasts on different things. So I will let the panelists also chime in. I think that just shows some of the ways that it's continued to evolve the past 5 years.
Yeah, I'll jump in here briefly. Yeah, news and journalism just over the last 5 years has changed quite a bit. I got into this business 5 years ago, and I think about, some of the stories that I used to tell and some of the ways that I used to tell those stories. It used to be you were waiting until the 6 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news to start putting your content out there. You didn't want the station across the street or down the road to know what your story was going to be about. But that's all changed. Now, as soon as you get on the scene, you're snapping pictures, you're tweeting out videos, you're doing whatever it is, you're updating people along the way. And I really like how it's evolving, because basically you're taking people on that journey with you. And a lot of times people trust you more when they can see how you're putting together your stories. And so that's one of the things that I've been passionate about, is just really opening up what was once this whole secret, I don't want to say secretive type of thing that we were doing before we got the stories on the air, but we didn't share a whole lot, you know? And so I think now that's changed drastically over the last 5 years. We're sharing more, we're bringing people along for the ride, and people enjoy that. They enjoy being a part of the process. They're a part of news gathering. That's why you're seeing so many citizen journalists pop up nowadays. You know, we've always had citizen journalists around, but you're seeing them get more into the digital space, and they're realizing that you don't necessarily have to be a career journalist to go out and tell stories. And that's what I tell a lot of young folks that are just getting in the business. They'll ask, well, how can I get a resume tape? And how can I do this? I'm like, you can do everything that we were doing 5 years ago on your cell phone. And seriously, we have journalists right now that only shoot their stories on their cell phones. And so, you know, I think just over the years, we're going to continue to see it evolve. The question is, how are we going to keep up with that? Because I really don't feel like news stations are adapting as much as they should and as quickly as they should when it comes to the digital space.
I would have to agree with Shara's last point, 100%. I too started off in traditional media. I started my career working for the New York Amsterdam News in Harlem, which is the longest running Black-owned publication in the nation. I also started off working at WOR 710 AM radio. So I've had, and I even hosted a local weekly TV show. So I've had a mix of both worlds, the traditional media and the new media. And what I tell all of my interns and my mentees is that you have to embrace what is new and what is forthcoming. Twitter, as you know, Twitter and social media, that's where news is being broken. You know, to Shara's point, you know, news breaks at 12 o'clock. You need to be able to write a story in 30 minutes, post it up, tweet it out, and understand how to communicate that story in different social media platforms. Another thing that is very different is at many of the outlets where I've worked and work now, they're like, okay, this is a great writer. This is a person who has a great on-air presence, but what's their social media like? What's their branding like? Because the thing is, we're competing in a space that is oversaturated with news. Everything is content driven. So you can write the best piece in the world, but it gives you an edge and a leg up when you have 10,000 plus followers on Twitter that you can share that with, because employers look at that now. So I would just say, again, when it comes to news and journalism, social media and technology has completely disrupted this industry. And it's best to understand how to use the platforms that young people are naturally gravitate to tell stories, whether that's TikTok, Instagram. Now the new thing is Clubhouse. You have, and the last thing I will say is, so many of my interns and mentees are telling me how they want to work at magazines and for traditional media. And I try to tell them all the time, you need to think forward. Some things are the past, and you have to keep present.
And Erica, did you want to feed into that point as well?
The other thing I would want to say is, how do we, within that space of citizen journalism and everything being content driven, how do we as journalists continue to make sure that the ethics of journalism are still being withheld? So you do have citizens journalism, which is basically anyone saying, hi, I'm anybody telling a story, but we went to school, we understand the ethics. So how do we make sure that journalism is still journalism, but still giving space to people that want to tell stories kind of in that way? And how do we still hold ourselves accountable? Because everybody has such information so quickly, we still have to be accurate, even though we still want to be fast. So how do we still hold ourselves accountable? But does that still mean like everybody's a journalist because there's citizen journalism?
I'll jump in since I brought up that point. I certainly don't think that everyone's a journalist because they are citizen journalism. So I want to be very clear on that point. Now, when we talk about taking up space and, how do we allow them to have their space to do what they do, it doesn't matter what we do in journalism. We will never be able to control what other people are doing with their own space, because the space is so widespread and everybody has access. It's free and open for everyone to use. That's why it's the World Wide Web. And so I would just say, when it comes to our content and the platforms that we are on, especially, I'll speak for myself, me on Instagram, right? If I share a story on my page, people know that story is accurate. They know that it's factual. I shared a story today about some shootings that happened in Dallas. People started commenting up under my post saying, oh, that's this person, that person. And I said, look, I haven't verified or validated any of that information. I am in contact with someone very close to the individual that you have named, but that hasn't been verified. So I'd appreciate it if you wanted to send me a message, then we can discuss it. But you can't just be out there putting false information out. And that's on my Instagram even right now. And so I think that's what we do when people come to you as a journalist with information, or people come to you to verify these viral reports or viral tweets or viral, posts that they've seen, that we go into it and we research it if it's within your realm, right? You ain't trying to research everything that somebody brings to you, but this is the city that I'm in Dallas. They tell me that this major celebrity in Dallas got shot, then that's something I'm going to research if they're providing me that information. So I think they can still have their space to put whatever information out there that they want. I can't control that, but what I can do is provide you factual information, and I can debunk whatever information that has been put out there to make sure that you get the accurate details of whatever the story is. That's what I could do as a journalist, and that's what we could all do as journalists, to be honest.
Right, focus on truth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what separates us, right? Like you said, we went to school for this. We all know the code of ethics. When we put information out there, and I'm in the sports space, if I put anything out wrong, sports fans will come at me very quickly and make sure that I understand that was wrong. And so I think when we put information out there, like you said, we're doing our research. It's factual. People follow us for that very reason, because we've established ourselves as authorities on certain subject matters, right? We all come from different spaces, and people know when they come to us, when they come to me for sports, when they come to Selena for entertainment news, when they come to Shara for news in Dallas about what's happening in the community. They know that, or even you, Erica, for news in the diaspora, right? Like they know that we're authority figures on that. I think that's why, especially in this election space that we just had, so many, I had to bring it up. I know there's still some feelings from it, but I think we have to talk about that, because it just shows there is a lot of false information out there, right? There are bots, and there are those things. So even when you're reading something, make sure the person that you're following has done research in it, has the experience in it. But I also do think there is an important side of citizen journalism.
Very much so.
In the current state, right? Think about, it's hard still to think about, but the death of George Floyd. It was a teenager that captured that moment that, of course, spewed, so many different stories from that. And especially in the space that we're now, where parents are telling their kids to carry their phone just so they can document something that happens to them. Citizen journalists have broken news, but again, I think it takes journalists like us to kind of go through the factual states of the different things and make sure that readers have informed news. We all have jobs because companies trust us to make sure that the news that we put out there is factual, right? Because if we put out false news, that's on us, and that's also on our employer. Your employer does not want you to make them look bad, right?
Okay.
Conversation that we honestly have to continue to have. So I just tell everyone out there, watch who you follow, look them up. We have Google now. You can research everyone and find out their background and their past. You can find out if they have any history of spewing false information and things like that.
Courtney, can I add one more thing to the changes?
Yes.
Thank you. Another thing that I've noticed is opinion-based journalism or commentary, whatever you call it, has been dominating this industry for so long. When I was in school studying media and communication, it was about being objective. But now you see, column writers, opinion-based journalists, those who can give commentary. That is what's really attracting an audience. And I think the truth be told, most media outlets were never 100% objective, but now they're just more transparent about the side that they lean towards. I was watching Don Lemon, and I've been watching CNN for 10 years. I was watching Don Lemon a few weeks ago, and I was floored at how he was just giving his opinion. And he spent 10 minutes just ranting about how upset he was with Donald Trump and all this other stuff. And you talk about being objective, that is just literally out the window. And I don't know if it was Fox News that really started to take lead, but because we know that Fox News is the biggest cable news outlet, they have the biggest audience. And I feel like a number of the other networks like MSNBC and CNN have taken a page from that book. And they do the same type of, stories now, and then it's all over social media. If you look at Jamel Hill, who literally her career reached a new level after she gave her opinion, right? So, and it's like, we praise that, we want that. I feel like audiences actually crave that, because they want transparency, and they want honesty over trying to be objective.
I think it's because too, Selena, we try so hard to be objective. And a lot of times, I think for the first time, and I had this conversation with my station managers, and we had a town hall basically for the entire station. And, I think for the first time with George Floyd, Kelsey, you brought this up earlier, for the first time with George Floyd, with that situation, journalists were finally able to, I don't want to say inject how they felt about something, but they were finally able to feel. And there hasn't been any other situation where journalists felt free enough to say, look, this was wrong. This is wrong. Why can't we say that this is wrong? And you're right, Selena, when you mentioned that, I've even noticed from my own followers that people crave authenticity. They crave people that are going to be real about whatever it is they're covering. Now, I'm not saying that the objectivity factor should be completely lost, because it should not be. And we should aim to have that, especially you mentioned some of the individuals that you were talking about earlier, not commenting on those particular individuals, but I'm just saying that sometimes it does go too far. And sometimes I think the younger journalists don't understand what it means to be objective in their reporting, which is why they struggle so much, even at the most basic things, because they haven't learned that objectivity factor and what it means, especially as you're starting off in some of these smaller markets. And that's for the folks, Selena, that it's going to start like the traditional news route, which again, that's kind of old school. They need to come on with the new media and try to get into some of these newer realms. But again, I think that objectivity factor is lost, so to speak, in the younger journalists, because they don't see exactly all the work that it takes to make sure that you're getting both sides of a story.
Good points, and thank you. And I wanted to just piggyback a little bit off of the conversation. So I wanted to kind of pick everyone's brain about, how do you feel about social media in regards to journalism? Has it saturated the authenticity of journalism, or has it kind of like not saturated it, or has it emphasized more of a focus on journalism? What are your thoughts in that regard?
I think for me, social media has given, I think for me personally, it gives everyone a greater voice, right? Because it's easier to kind of reach and follow people through it. Now, is it saturated? Sure, right? You go on social media, you go on Twitter, especially depending on how many people you follow. But I think you're also able to kind of weed through the roots, where through social media, you're able to follow, whatever your interests are, or somebody that has a similar viewpoint. We talk about objectivity in the past conversation, which is so important. But I also think we know now social media kind of has spewed this culture of, who can get the most clicks. And usually the most clicks is the person that can say kind of the most outrageous thing, right? And that person starts to trend, and stories are created. But I'd say social media also, as a journalist, it helps our jobs, right? Like when something starts to trend on social media, and most of my day, my phone is attached to my hip. It's right here for that very reason, even as we're doing this panel, because I need to see what's happening. I need to be able to kind of catch on to that news. So it makes it easier in that regards. But I do think it kind of hurts the old fashioned core of journalism, because now everyone wants to just be first and be quick. And I'll give this example, when the passing of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi, that number of how many died kept changing, and everybody just wanted to get that word out first. And then, it happens a lot of times, unfortunately, when celebrities die, right? The information's kind of wrong, but people just wanted to get it out first to say, we put it out first, right? But before, old-fashioned journalism was put it out, but get it right? Because it was a bad reflection on you. Where now it's just like a tap on the wrist, they got it wrong, and kind of life goes on as normal. And I don't think we're holding ourselves up to those norms of journalism that every person that has graduated from a journalism school has went through and pledged that oath, which is why we have a society of professional journalists. So I think it's a good and bad. I think social media, like most things, right? It has its pros and it has its cons. But I think for career-wise, you're able to brand yourself through social media. As a freelancer, most of the jobs I get is through social media. So career-wise, it's been very helpful for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say the same thing in regards to social media. I think for me, because I don't cover, most of my work is human feature news, or kind of the subversive story with maybe within a bigger story. So my things are not, daily turnaround. So with that, I think it's with a journalist kind of looking at what form of social media fits your audience or the type of news that you produce. It may be Facebook for certain journalists, maybe Instagram. For me, I like a lot of my work, and just like Kelsey, I get my jobs and opportunities, but perspective through Twitter. I find through Twitter, I can just read, just see what's going on and read people's opinions and read people's perspectives, especially read things of people that maybe have a counter perspective of what I may think personally, or a counter perspective to whatever the bigger, what everybody else is thinking. So I think for me, it's looking at what form of social media works best. And for me, I think it's Twitter, but also I've told myself many years ago to have a healthy balance with social media. So I don't even have notifications on my phone, but I don't work in breaking news anymore. But some people may have to do that, for the nature of their job, but also finding a way to have a healthy relationship with it, because we are obsessed with the news, right? We're obsessed with the news, but we also produce the news. So it's kind of this, at least for me, this back and forth of having a sense of balance with it.
Yes, thank you. And then I want to kind of talk to you guys about your younger self. Like, so everyone has I'm pretty sure, a tremendous big background. So what's some advice that you would give your younger self before you even got into this field, before you got into the job that you have now? What is some advice that you would give your younger self?
For me, and it's sort of like the underlying theme that I continue to speak about, is embrace tech. Embrace, what has become the new landscape of social media. Because I really feel like, and I said this before, how technology has really disrupted this field. And I feel like if you, like my younger self, I would have been on the cusp of it. It's so funny because the podcast that I've done, I started off in college as a radio show, took a hiatus, and then started doing it professionally at WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. And we were getting great guests. We even won an award from the New York Press Club. And my co-host kept telling me, like, Selena, this thing called podcasting, and I think we should try to get into it, right? This is like 2013, 2014. And I was like, I don't know, the show's doing so well. Like, we get callers and we get the accolades, and, everything was doing so well. And he was like, I'm telling you, I think we should start to do podcasts first. Develop this first and think like that. And lo and behold, podcasting is now $1 billion industry. So I will say, and my co-host also said, a few years ago, like, video is the new thing. It's the new wave. Video has taken off in the past 2 years. And one of the, I think the intern that we had at the time at the station, she wanted to do video, and I was like, go for it, because everything is about authenticity, which was mentioned earlier. It's about being, yourself, and showing, behind the scenes what it takes to make a story. I remember when I did a story on the NFL and JC's partnership. Now, I'm not in sports, that is Kelsey's field, but I did do a really big story about it. And like, people were so interested about me. I did like a random Instagram story, and they were so interested in it. And I'm just like, it picked up, and it, it started really getting some traction. Then I put the story out there, and sometimes I wonder, I'm like, do people just want to see what I put on social media more so than the stories that I'm taking hours to write and fact check? So again, it's a change in landscape. Keep that in mind.
That is so real. I'm so happy you mentioned that, Selena. And it's so crazy. I believe it was Ginger Z. And I'm just going to throw this out there, and then I'll get to your question that you posed, Miss Courtney. But Ginger Z basically she works for ABC, by the way. She posted a picture on her Instagram, and it was like a picture of her. I think it was like of her in some dress or something. She was like, okay, now that I have your attention, can you please go back and look at the story, the actual story that I spent all my time working on, and give me some comments or whatever about that story, because it was a very important topic for her, right? So she basically said, you guys are more concerned about a picture, right? As opposed to the actual content, the story that she was working on. So anyway, just to your point, Selena, I think that's very important when it comes to the type of stuff that you're putting on social media and knowing your audience. And so one of the things that I'll say that I wish I had embraced early on was just authenticity and being me. When I got in this industry, I didn't know much about anything. I did not have mentors, and I have so many mentees now because I know the importance now of having a mentor when you get into this business. So number one, I would tell myself, Shara, go find you a mentor. Find somebody, anybody to help you navigate these first couple of years, because it was certainly a struggle. So I would certainly say get you a mentor. I would also say be you at the very beginning. You know, and everybody might not agree with what I'm about to say, but I had a mentee. She sent me her resume reel. She had already sent it out to stations, but she ended up sending it to me after the fact. We talked about it. She had a nose ring. She had her hair and her afro. Sis was sis, okay? And she was being herself. And so when I looked at it, I was just like, you know, I'm not used to seeing a nose ring, but I'm not going to tell her to take it out. Why would I? You know, she's already sent it out. Stations are already reaching out to her, interested. So why would I try to tell her what she should look like and all that kind of stuff? I would say be you, because I think that puts you in the best situations at any job. Being at Channel 8, ABC Dallas is probably one of the best jobs that I've had thus far, because I walked into that interview and I was like, look, I don't encourage this, but I was like, look, this is me. This is what you're going to get. And I mean it. I said it basically in that fashion. This is me. This is what you're going to get. And this is how it goes. So yeah, be yourself and embrace authenticity early on, because that's going to set you up for the best situation.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And Shara and Selena, what you said, and to what Shara said, there is a room, there is a place that has room for you and who you are. I think much like Shara was saying, I think my early years, I tried to conform to what everyone was telling me. And it ended up being so much, I kept changing where I kind of had lost myself. But now, you know, I'm embraced and I get jobs because I'm me, right? And that authenticity that Shara is talking about, that's how followers will come. And so people kind of get to know you and your brand. And I think something else that I wish that I knew when I was younger was just the power of networking, right? Like, and not just networking in your area, but travel. If you can, do a job somewhere else. Like, I think the people that you can meet, and the journalism world is big, but it's also so small. You'll be surprised by who knows who, and you know, and a lot of jobs are gotten that way, right? By who knows each other. So I think that's something else I would probably tell my younger self that I just wish I knew. Like, I didn't join NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, which is something I think we're all a part of, until I was in grad school. When I was in college, I was like, oh, it's too expensive. I'm not even going to worry about it. If only I had done it earlier, I would have been so proud, you know, of my younger self. And I think that's just something important to know. And then I think also the other piece of advice I would give is to diversify yourself. And I say that to say, like, I do sports reporting, right? But I've also done political, I've done entertainment, I've done a bunch of things. I wish I would have known that when I was younger. I thought, you know, let me just do a bunch of sports because I'm going to get a job in sports. But what's happening now? One that has always said sports is political. There's some people who are, for some reason, just now finding it out. But, you know, we're seeing that intersection, right? Through the Black Lives Matter movement, sports has kind of been in the forefront. Look what Colin Kaepernick kind of did to explode the sports world. Talk about entertainment. Selena does entertainment. Who was one of the people that wanted to be written in for president? Kanye West. Like, there's so much intersection that's happening in the world right now. So the more diversified that you're writing, that your background can be, the better, because then you, especially as a freelancer, you have an opportunity to get different jobs. I mean, one of the things I did this year was I was on the election trail in South Carolina doing political reporting. Wow. I don't know if I knew that, but like, people know me for sports, but I do have a background in public policy and politics. So it also helps me to get different jobs, diversify myself, and again, kind of continue my brand building, which I don't want to be known by one thing. You know, I'm a person that's constantly evolving. So I was telling my younger self, Kelsey, do that political, do that political writing, do that entertainment job. Don't only do sports. So I hope all the young journalists, and much like Shara and Selena, I share that with all of my mentees all the time. Like, you define you. No one else defines you, so you don't have to be placed into one box.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say to my younger self, you kind of keep doing what you're doing and know where you feel confident in your niche of what you want to do in journalism. I think it's important for budding journalist to know that the career in the field is very, very broad and it's very wide. I knew right out the gate that I didn't want to do local news. And everyone was saying, kind of do this local hop. And that was not the path that I knew in my heart that I wanted to take. So after grad school, I packed up and I moved to Africa, and that was my first job in Ghana. So I would say really follow your gut and know where you have to adapt and where you have to change, but understand that the news business is very, very broad. It's very wide, and it's not just limited to the United States. My best and most proudest work has all been in an international space. So don't just limit yourself to just this country. You have storytelling skills. You can take them anywhere. You can take them absolutely anywhere. And I think as Black journalists, it's really something that is coveted and wanted in an international space. So that's really what I would tell my younger self. And then also I would say to young budding journalists, don't just look at monster.com for the job. Create the job. 95% of my stories, I pitched them. So you're not going to see on monster.com, we're looking for this journalist to cover chocolate in West Africa and she looks just like you. No, you have to tell them so also have that confidence to always pitch and find stories. It should be in your blood. It should be what you do, that you are always looking and finding stories and bringing stories to different places that don't cover what you think they should cover.
Wow. I mean, I'm taking this all in, to be very, very transparent with all of you. I am taking this all in and just putting in this knowledge for my own self, So, but also as women in the media, and particularly women of color, what are the most important changes we need to make to face the future effectively? Oh.
I'll jump in. I was over here laughing to myself. Look, first of all, let me tell you something. When Black women, like you said, Black women in particular, right? When Black women show up as themselves fully, that is the most important thing. Erica said, making sure that you are out there pitching your stories and creating the spaces that you need. Kelsey, you mentioned basically not being defined. Don't let anyone define you. Oh, Selena, look. You guys are out there creating these magnificent spaces that we once didn't go into, right? Podcasting, right? Podcasting wasn't something that, a lot of us was doing early on. Now I see so many Black women with podcasts, and it's insane and it's beautiful. So I think we have to start to change the game early. When we hear about something, whether it's trending, whether it's the new kid on the block, whether it's the new show, whether it's the new way of doing whatever it is, TikTok, Twitter. Selena mentioned one earlier. What was it? Clubhouse?
Yep.
Clubhouse. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. All these different avenues, we got to take advantage of them early, because I think that's why we get left behind. We wait and see, okay, well, let me just see how well it's going to do. Nah, sis, jump in early on, figure it out, show up as your authentic self, define that space that you're in, and let the people know that you are here. Be confident in everything that you do. When you walk into that room, you fill that space with your energy. Okay. And when we start to feel that those spaces, whatever those spaces may be, with our energy and what we bring to the table, and stop shrinking ourselves to be in this small mindset of what we think we should be doing in that job, that's when I think things are really going to start to change. When we start showing up fully as ourselves and taking advantage of every opportunity as it lands on the plate.
Listen, you just preached the whole. You just listen.
The Shara is preaching.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
I mean, the Shara, correct me if I'm wrong, but you went viral a few weeks ago for having a beautiful natural hairstyle.
Yeah.
That got picked up, and everyone. And I wanted to bring that up because at Black Enterprise, we've been reporting about how Black women with natural hairstyles are discriminated against in the workplace. Those are based on statistics and data. And I do feel a turnaround. I've been at Black Enterprise for 4 years, and and during that time, I've went natural. And I feel like it's more accepted now as of very late. But it was just a few years ago when, I didn't grow up hearing be your authentic self.
Okay.
I grew up hearing you better be 10 times better than Becky. And when in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Right.
So you need to learn how to speak, dress and do, so I think it's a very different dichotomy that people are in. We have, you know, this duality where it's like on social media, you get praised for being, you know, your authentic self. But in some of these settings, you still have to conform and assimilate. So I think it's also a balancing act for Black women.
Yeah, it is a balancing act, but Selena, I'm all about, look, I'm tired of it being a balancing act. We need to show up. Real talk, man. That is so tiring. And just think about it. Black women are already called to do so much and to be the backbone of so many situations. And I'm like, listen, I am tired of that. I'm tired of having conversations about code switching. I'm like, look, no, when we walk up in there, this is what you gonna get. One of the best compliments rather that I've ever gotten from people interviewing me, and this was at the past virtual NABJ, people saying, look, you the same person on your resume reel that I'm talking to here on this interview, on this virtual interview. So I think whatever we are doing at work, at home, whatever it is, I mean, don't get it twisted. You got to button up a little bit when you walk into your professional space. What I'm saying is, man, show up as you. I'm tired of doing that balancing act. We are very multifaceted creatures and we are beautiful beings. And I just think the minute we start to show up, and stations see it. Stations see, you know, these outlets see that people want authenticity, that people want you to be you. People want you to be their homegirl, their friend, their whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the minute that we can start to do that in all spaces, Selena, where we don't have to show up and think, oh, well, maybe I need to act this way or talk this way or do this or dress this way so that I can be accepted. You know, I think that's when we start to really, really, truly, fully diversify what we have to offer.
Yeah, I think to Shara's point, I think the world is changing slowly, but it's changing. Of course, we know it should have been changed. But, you know, just this week, I think I've done 4 different hairstyles. I'm not natural, you know, I got some help with the extensions, but still, it just goes to show, I mean, we have versatility, right? Which I think is something that Black women have that is so unique. And it is embracing that and making sure, because not only do you represent yourself, you're trying to make sure that other people that look like you, other Black women that look like you, can also come into that space and make the room bigger so that there are more seats at the table. And you know, I think the world is being forced to kind of realize this now. You're right. We've had to conform for so long. We've had to code switch. You know, we've had to watch our tone so it's not seen as aggressive, which I know is a whole nother conversation. But now, you know, I've had more conversations since we have our new president-elect and vice president-elect, you know, Kamala Harris being in the top spot. Now everyone's coming to us asking about, you know, our Black Greek organizations. I know some of us here on this call are with different Greek letter organizations. We're having this conversation about HBCUs. We've seen after, it's bad it took George Floyd's death, but what did a lot of companies do after? They started having these diversity policies in companies. You know, I'm involved in my stations, among my jobs are DEI task force. I want to make sure that not only am I making it equitable for me, but again, for others that work at the station. And again, I'm always thinking about the people that come behind. So I think as Black women, we have this charge to be leaders, you know, not minimize our voices, make sure that stories that are important in our communities are being covered, making sure that they're getting attention. And then also that we can offer viewpoints to other stories. Like there should be no reason that if there's a subject matter on the Black Lives Matter, like here in DC, we're preparing for the Proud Boys rally or march that they're doing in DC. There needs to be Black journalists covering that story, or if you're a newsroom or organization, making sure that Black women's voices are also in there and amplified. So I like to say, like, make sure that you're not quiet in the newsroom. Make sure in those editorial meetings you're raising up your voice and your viewpoint, because as Shara said, Black women for a long time have been the backbone of many different things, but we're tired of being hidden. It's time that we come to the forefront. It's time that we come to the light, because we are the future. We're not going anywhere. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. But again, showing that versatility, never being afraid to be your best self, because the easiest self to be is your authentic self. You're going to have such a harder time trying to be something that you're not and trying to always remember to be that person. But when you are yourself, I think the followers come. I think, you know, people gravitate towards you, and then you can truly be your best self and put out your best piece of work.
Yeah, I agree with Kelsey, and I think it's also important as now that all of the eyes are on the Black woman, to make sure that we are not pigeonholed or caricaturized, or that it's just a phase or it's just a short time thing. Because as we know, we all work in the news business and certain news cycles, and then things come and then they go. And I think it's important for us to make sure that there's not one single story of the Black woman, or one single story of the Black woman in America. There are multiple stories of the Black woman in America, and that 6 months from now, we're still pushing and telling our narratives in many different ways, and also telling and uplifting and amplifying the voices of other marginalized women as well. So making sure that within our storytelling, it's here to stay. The voice of Black women, and it's not just in this moment. It is forever.
Thank you. Thank you all for those points there. And now I want to kind of bring light to the theme this year for women in media. Our theme is pivot. So when you think of the word pivot, what does that mean to you in your career particularly?
Selena, I feel like you want to kick us off with this one. I just feel like this is you, sis. I can jump in after, but I feel like you just need to kick us off.
Okay. Okay, sure. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, no, I think so. We've been focusing a lot on pivoting. At Black Enterprise, we focus on Black entrepreneurship, and between the conversations and the interviews I've done with another Black business owners, and even myself as a journalist, as a brand, considering that myself, and even the organization that I'm with, everything has been a pivot. At the top of 2020, I had my year lined up, and it was literally panning itself out to be the best year of my career. And then obviously, things just took a drastic turn. So I think that, no longer can I travel at all as frequently as I was, which was like the best part of my job was to travel. But now I'm doing, I'm literally having the same, conversations. But this time everything is virtual, and I'm doing it, in the comfort of my home. So that was like a number one thing. Again, bracing technology and taking advantage of it. Also, I've been more tapped in and intentional about building my brand. This is something that any marketer, any business owner, anybody will tell you it is crucial, especially if you are in media, communications, and entertainment. Kelsey said earlier today that she's received job opportunities through social media. It's about being consistent. It's about being authentic, and it's about identifying your brand and identifying your audiences, because if you can articulate that, you bring so much value to any media corporation, especially the older ones and the big ones, like from NBC, ABC, CNN, all of them, because we're all in this pivot, together, that we're all trying to figure it out. We talked about traditional media and how it's changed. People aren't watching TV as much because they're competing with social media, and just the fact that that's the way most people get their content now. And then they talk about it online with their friends all day on different platforms. So it's a different time. And, if you haven't already made that pivot, now is the time to lock in and just figure out, where do you see your futuristic self? Follow the trends, understand, the trends, and where the future of news is going. Because if you can be on that cusp, then you can guarantee a future in this field.
Because I can chime in. I think Selena hit on so many important points, but I think you pivot throughout your whole life. You pivot throughout your career. None of us are where we started, because we've constantly had to pivot and constantly evolve. And I think COVID-19 especially showed how we've all had to pivot to adjust to this new landscape. Much like Selena, I was excited. I was on a plane every week. Traveling is one of the best perks of the job, living out of the suitcase. But then, of course, COVID happened and all those trips got canceled, but stories still had to be told. And I think what we've seen during COVID-19, and not even just in the journalism space, but we've seen some people probably work harder and some kind of relax. And I think, again, that's that pivot that we've had to make. I think I work now more because I'm at home and I really had no stopping point than I did before, right? Because I'm on my computer all day long. Like, it's funny, I just went to a doctor's appointment. My doctor's like, you're just at that point where you don't have to wear glasses. So I'm trying to stay above it, but how, I don't know, because I'm staring at the screen all day. But, now I'm doing interviews through Zoom. It's different. I do sideline reporting usually. So for college basketball coming up, I'm waiting to see how we're going to do that, because of course now we know the numbers are spiking. But again, I'll be able to pivot because I've been doing Zoom interviews this entire summer into this fall. My podcast was only audio. We pivoted during COVID-19 to making it live stream. And then we started getting some of the biggest name guests on the show. Why? Because we were like, hey, no one's going to say no to us because we know what they're doing. Usually if you talk to PR, oh, he's busy, he's that. No, he's not, because the airports, no one's flying right now. So it was a lot easier to kind of do my job. And also, I think, going to Selena's point, it shows that you can keep up with technology. Everything is digital now. We saw kind of TikTok really explode, especially during the COVID-19 period, because everyone was home. They're bored. I'm learning TikTok now. I'm a little bit behind. My boss, like, Kelsey, you have to learn TikTok. Like, we're trying to connect, with our viewers. So I made my account. I have no video yet. But again, it's learning to constantly pivot into the new situation. Again, doing sideline reporting, I'm used to kind of that connection. I can see your facial expressions. I'm right next to you. Now I'm really reading the Zoom camera to see how you feel, because we're doing through it like this, but I still need to be able to connect with you to tell that story and make sure that the viewers are able to connect. I pivoted through high school sports to college sports, now professional sports. And then, of course, I'll continue to pivot, much like Erica said. I mean, I was on news in Canada this year, and it tied into our Washington football team name and how they're trying to change names of teams in Canada. Again, just constantly pivoting and being able to evolve. And that's, I think, it's a perfect theme for this whole series, because that's what you're going to have to do through life. Many of us, we've pivoted, and we're still going to continue to pivot. Do this panel in 5 more years with all of us, we'll have a lot of stories about how we've constantly pivoted, because who knows where the future is going to be. But I think it's just being able to constantly keep up with change, not being afraid of change, and honestly embracing change. And I think once you get that, it'll be easy to pivot to anything and anywhere you'll go. I pivoted into teaching. That was not in my career plans, but it's something that I embrace. And honestly, it's one of my best jobs that I currently do. So it's always just learning something new. And that's why I'm honored, honestly, to work with youth and kids, because they also help me pivot with social media. Clubhouse, Selena, is something I'm going to learn. I keep hearing about it, but something I'm not on yet. But again, I will pivot and make it happen, and life goes on.
Yeah, I don't y'all already said everything. Look, pivot, forward thinking, keep moving forward. That's really it. Everybody just keep moving forward. Never get stagnant in any position, in any job. I always tell people, like, embrace where you are, but at the same time, always be forward thinking. I tell that to the younger journalists who I mentor. I tell that to even some of the folks that, we're on the same team. We're on the same quote unquote level, right? And I just say, always just be forward thinking, knowing what's next. Try to tap into this different technology, knowing how you can utilize different platforms to tell your stories, because there's no one platform fits all. You got to be willing to work on different platforms to make sure you get the word out the best way that you can. And so I think that Selena and Kelsey hit the nail on the head really with everything that they said. Just forward thinking and keep it moving. That's the best advice I can give you.
Yeah, and I would also add to that, in this moment of the pandemic and quarantine and all of that, also take the time to rest. And look at rest also as a part of your productivity. When you rest, then hopefully you can, when you back up and you're refreshed, you can do your research and you can make better choices, instead of just copying someone else's social media, whatever, like, oh, this person's cool, they do these kinds of stories. Instead of just copying what they do and copying their persona, take the time to rest, regroup, and see what you can add, see how your angle can be different. I think there's also this constant produce, which we at times that we have to do, but also, take a moment to just pause and say, what do I want to do? What's off? Maybe I'm not authentic as I thought I would be. Where is my authenticity? And to just take that time to pause and then go back out there, do your research, and see how you can share it with the world.
I can just add one more thing, because we are in this COVID-19 environment. I think it's so important. Unfortunately, one of the negative consequences of COVID-19 is that we've seen media companies cutting jobs, right? Every week, it's, media companies laying off this amount of people. And talking about pivoting, these people are going to have to pivot. You're not seeing as many jobs open, I think, as once before. And I think they are in the digital space, but, I've had this conversation with, unfortunately, numerous friends that have gotten laid off, but they're pivoting, they're creating their own content. And a cool thing about now is that networks will pick up your content. Peacock is picking up podcasters, right, to put on their network. And that's just one example. So pivoting is something you're going to have to do. Like Shara said, you have to be forward thinking. You can never be too comfortable, because no day is promised, right? Like, none of us thought COVID-19 would happen. I think some of us are still trying to get through that. A second wave is coming, right? But again, it's pivoting, forward thinking, because now that we know COVID-19 can happen, we kind of know, well, hopefully, what is the worst case scenario, of what can happen for all of our jobs. But you can just never be too safe. You always have to pivot. If you say you've never pivoted in your life, I would never believe you, because you've always had to change something, because you're not the same person that you were yesterday, today.
Just to add on to, Kelsey's point, one way that I've also pivoted and been intentional was, when I started my career, I aspired to be a journalist, and I was honored to be called a multimedia journalist, or even brand myself as an award-winning journalist. But the fact that I just said brand myself, right? Like that's intentional. And now what I've been doing is I'm a content creator, right? And this is something that, again, when it comes to pivoting in the landscape, to me, journalism and news is harder to get into and actually, accelerate into your career, but every single outlet is looking for content creators. And now the skills that we learned as journalists are all transferable to create different types and pieces of content. And for me, what I'm seeing, my personal opinion is, if you are aspiring to work for a larger company, whether that's Facebook, NBC, Peacock, what they are looking for is someone who can create content that connects to a certain audience. So that's why I say, I put emphasis on, just understanding the market and your market value.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I mean, it's been a night full of just gems and just dropping so much advice. But I would love to say and have you guys think about, what is one gem that you would drop for someone who's an inspiring journalist, someone who wants to get into media, woman of color? What's one gem that you would drop?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I don't want to make this a long-winded answer. Go for it. Go for that job. Go for creating that podcast. Think about it. Be intentional about it. Just go for it. Don't let anybody hold you back. Don't listen to the critics. Don't listen to the haters. They're going to always be out there. Go for it. Get advice from people that are already in this business. Again, during this time of the pandemic, Kelsey mentioned it earlier, we started reaching out to whoever, and whenever, wherever, right? Everybody really at home, or they should be at least. And if you want to reach out to somebody for an interview, just this past week, I had a young man reach out to me and say, well, how do I get these kind of people on the show? I say, have you emailed them? Have you tried to find a phone number? Did you LinkedIn? Did you know what I'm saying? Have you done any of these things? And the person hadn't. I say, look, don't be afraid. Just go for it. Go for it. Reach out, do what you got to do, and connect with some folks that can help you along the way. Because there's a lot of people in this business that are willing to help you out.
I think Shara hit the nail on the head. I'll keep it short and simple. Bet on yourself. I hear people all the time thinking this person's great and they're going to make it, but they never say that about themselves. You've put the work in. You've been through school. You've been through different experiences. Bet on yourself. I think it's just believing in yourself. And I think, again, we're in this unique time period where there's so many opportunities, and through social media, you can create a job opportunity for yourself. I mean, now you see YouTubers, right? Like influencers creating their own jobs in their own lanes. I mean, it used to be, parents would yell at their kids for playing video games. Now esports is huge, and sports journalism. If you can do esports, there's a job opportunity for you, right? Like, your parents can't yell at you anymore for just playing video games in the basement, because you have these guys making millions of dollars now for people to watch them play sports. And now journalists are getting jobs to report on that very situation. So bet on yourself, believe in yourself. There is something out there for you. If you have an interest, I'm pretty sure there's a job out there for you.
Yeah, and I would say, continue to create and innovate. So don't just wait for that perfect job. As I said before, create that job. Maybe you have to call that station or that newspaper or that magazine and tell them about the story that they don't have, and why you're going to be great at doing it, and why they need to pay you the most amount of money to do it. So create and innovate. I think some of the budding journalists forget that with this business, you have to have the confidence to cold call people. Cold call email, speak to people you've never spoken to before. You really have to put yourself out there. And that's a part of the business. So they have that in some way, always remember that it's really not about you. It's putting yourself out there to get a bigger story that can help your community.
I just want to say I received all of that. I feel like those points were for me from go forward to bet on yourself, to create and innovate. I feel like that really just sums up the essence of this panel. And I'm so grateful to have heard it from all of you guys, let alone to sit here. The only thing that I would really add to that, some tangibles, is communication skills go a long way. Work with a speech therapist if you need to. Please, work on writing. The way you communicate via emails will sometimes determine if that publicist is going to give you access to a client or if you're going to get a call back. So definitely understand the power of communication. I think, networking, we talked about how social media has helped us get jobs. Also networking. I remember I received 3 weeks after graduating, I received a interview at my dream job at the time, which was CNN. And it was because I had met the anchor, I did research on the anchor who was speaking at this event, and I complimented her on a great story she did. And literally it manifested into me getting an interview. And the last point that I would make is be ready for your time to shoot your shot, because that interview that I got at CNN, I blew it. And I know it's a curveball, but completely failed, flopped, went home crying. It was horrible, right? So also be ready for your moment. If you were to have your moment right now, if you were to have an opportunity right now, how would you leverage it? How would you capitalize on it? And make sure you always show up as your best self so that you can do exactly that.
I know we're done and I know the panel is ended, but Selena, I just wanted to basically say something about that last point you mentioned about be ready for your moment. A lot of people, when the whole situation, you mentioned it early on with the hair situation, with the bun situation that I wore in there here in Dallas, when that situation happened and what happened afterwards, as far as the commentary, that now this was a commentary piece and we made it very clear that it was a commentary piece. So I know we've been talking about objectivity, but this was very clearly a commentary piece to respond to some of the folks who had wrote in about the hairstyle. So anyways, I said all that to say a lot of the feedback that I got after that story went viral was, oh, they picked the right one for this one. And they really did. They picked the right person because I was ready to address them head on. So I really appreciate you saying that. Be ready for when your moment comes. You stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. That's it.
There you go.
Come on now. Yes. So Selena, Kelsey, Shara, and Erica, tonight was amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for participating in Black Women in Media. We appreciate you. You guys are pivotal in our communities. So thank you so much for participating with us this evening. Anything you guys want to say? Any final thoughts or anything?
If I could just add one thing, I'm sorry, I'm always that person, but we were talking about yourself. And I also just want to say, love yourself for who you are. I think we've also seen in the last couple of years, Black women's bodies being objectified. But look, we're shapely people. Look, my family's Southern. I like to eat. I'm not going to stop eating for anyone else. I think just love yourself for who you are. And again, don't let, social media can be, we all see the comments and sometimes everybody will not be your biggest fan, but don't let that get to you because again, we live in this new world. I guess it's this woke culture where you will have people and allies come to your defense. To Shara, you will have people come to your defense for just being the best version of you, being natural, being thick. It's nothing wrong with it. So just be comfortable in yourself. And again, there is a place for you. I just hope that we all utilize that and we all know that because again, I think as Black women, we're often told so often we have to conform to be these stereotypes. No, you don't. No, you don't. Be you, and there will be something for you, and people will love you for that. All right, I promise I'm done, and we can.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, and I hope the viewers you have enjoyed and will enjoy this conversation. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.